Hello everyone. So I introduced description form of adjectives last class to you, and today we'll be looking into the conjugation rules of how to getting that done. So this is in page number 69 of the material given in the description box. So getting to the conjugation rules. So, as usual, you would start by taking the da off at the end of the adjectives. And once you're done with that, the next step comes where you would attach an un to the end of the adjective. And this is the un. And if you don't, this is in case you have a bachim present. And I expect you already know what bachim means. So, considering that you have a bachim, mantha would become manan. So it would be manan zaramdal, like saying as in an example. The next, chakta would become jagan. Jagan Nanjengi. Nanjengi means dwarf. And E here, listen, it's not a particle, it is a part of the word. The next one, Yarpta. Yarpta would change to Yarbin. Yarbin Pi. So Pi can mean two things, as we have learned numbers already. You already know that Pi is a Sino-Korean numeral for 8. But then it doesn't, like, you wouldn't say a thin 8, like if you're talking about a poster which has 8 in there or something, maybe you could say that, not sure, but possibly. But in this case, it means a thin arm. The next is nopta. Nopta means high, and it changes to nopen. Nopen haner or nopen building. Haner, I don't think you can exactly say that because sky is always up there. So it's always gonna be high. But then if you think of a building, okay, maybe you could say a high building. So in that case, you would say 높은 building. The next one, like from now on, we're gonna see the exceptions to what we saw right now, that is the ones which have buttons. So suppose the final character, after removing that is, you have it or obs. In that case, all you have to do is add nin to the end. That is, you took off da, right? In that da's position, you would just add a nin, and that would work like mashita would become mashinnin, so mashinnin 음식. 멋있다, 멋있는 차. 재밌다, 재밌는 영화. 재미없다, 재미없는 drama. So if you see here, you have itta, opta at the end. Actually, itta means to exist and opta means to not exist. And this is like opposites of each other, as it is very much clear. So in that case, like if you want to say the opposite of a word which has itta at the end, you could just take that itta off and add opta at its place, and that would make it opposites to each other. Like, see, for example, you have mashita, which means tasty, and to say not not delicious, you could just say madopta. That means literally no taste. Mad means taste. So when you say madopta, it literally means that it's tasteless. And moshita would become modopta. And that is not a commonly used term, but mashita and madopta are pretty common. 재밌다, 재미없다. So you're saying that it's not fun or it's not interesting. 재미 means fun. So you're saying 재밌다 means it's fun. And 재밌다 and 재미없다, you have it both there. And Next is another one which has bachim as real or here. So if you have bachim's real or here, what you gotta do is like substitute that real or here with a nian as given here. So if you see the examples, it's like kirda becomes kin. So real here is substituted or replaced by kin. So that would become kin yonpe. 달다, 단 chocolate. 빨갛다, 빨간 사과. Like in the last class we saw 빨간, 파란, 노란, 흰. We saw a lot of colors like this. And all these colors behave pretty much in the same way. 노랗다, 노란, 우산. 빨간, 사과. An exception to this is like 좋다 means good or you like it, these kind of things. So like wouldn't exactly come there, I think, when you're talking about adjectives. So it would be more like good. And in that case, 좋다 would change to 좋은. So 좋은 means it's good. So you would say 좋은 음식. 음식 we saw earlier, 음식 means food. So when you're saying 좋은 음식, it literally means good food. So when you're saying good food, of course it can mean both like it's tasty food or good for your body, whichever it is depending on the situation. And if you have like our next conjugation rule, if you have a beep as bachim, like beep as bachim, what you would do is you would take it off, and at the place of the da you took off in the beginning, there you would add an un. So un can mean luck, but that's when un comes alone as a word as it is. Now you're attaching it to some word, so understand that it wouldn't mean the same thing. If like suppose if you say un 좋다, so that would mean fortunate. So that's how like the luck thing comes. So coming to the examples, 쉽다, 쉬운. So you wouldn't like that wouldn't mean easy luck. That would just mean easy. 쉽다, 쉬운 문제. So 문제 is literally like somebody giving you a question to solve, or like in school or colleges or whatever educational institution when you have exams, or be it qualifying exams or whatever it is, you have questions to solve in that paper whichever you're solving. Like your questions you gotta solve, and that is what you call munje. Suppose you have some problem going on in your life, that is another meaning which can be addressed as munje. So munje has two meanings like that. 아름답다, 아름다운 꽃. 차갑다, 차가운 바다. 뜨겁다, 뜨거운 커피. And this one also has an exception, and that is 좁다. 좁다 means crammed. And 좁다 would behave as this first conjugation rule that we saw today. You just simply add an un at the end. So 좁다 would become 좁은, and 좁은 운동장. So when you say 운동장, it can mean things like playground, a place to practice some martial arts or sports or something of the kind. I'm saying this because 운동 can mean working out too, like working out just to build your body or just to keep healthy, but that like place you go to work out, you wouldn't call that an 운동장. You would rather call it 헬스장. It would be 헬스장. So coming back to our conjugation rules, up until now we saw adjectives which have bottom. Now we're gonna see how things behave when there isn't a bottom. And that is like 멋지다, 예쁘다, 빠르다, all these given here doesn't have bottoms. So 멋지다 would become 멋진. So you can see pretty much what has happened here. You're just adding nian as a bottom here. So nian is added there and it becomes 멋진, and that will be 멋진 모자. 예쁘다, 예쁜 구두. 빠르다, 빠른 자동차. It is given 자 here, but it is 자 actually. So 빠른 자동차, 느리다, 느린 속력. 속력 means speed, like speed of anything you're doing. It doesn't exactly have much of a double meaning. Then coming to another way where you could say this same thing, and that is like you saw 아름다운 꽃 a few minutes before, and 아름다운 꽃 can also be said as 꽃들이 아름다워요 or 꽃이 아름다워요, depending on whether it is singular or plural, whatever it is. But as you can see here, it is pretty much saying beautiful flowers and flowers are beautiful. So it's like active and passive speech, and both the forms are used in both written and spoken Korean. And another form is like, of course, you already know that 꽃들이 아름다워요, 자동차가 멋져요, 문제가 쉬워요. All here uses the particles, and when it comes to spoken Korean, a lot of the particles are omitted except when it is and rul. Except for that, iga and are omitted like quite often. That is the case most of the times. So this is also correct. That is 꽃들 아름다워요, 자동차 멋져요, 문제 쉬워요. So I have omitted the particles here. And another form which is usually used only in spoken Korean, and when you have that whatever you're talking about right in front of your eyes, and that is a form with ne at the end. 꽃들 아름답네 when you're saying in 반말, and when you're saying in 존댓말, it would be 꽃들 아름답네요. You just add a yo at the end. It's pretty much the same thing with and without the yo. 자동차 멋지네요. 문제가 쉽네요. So you can use the particles or not use the particles. That's just your choice, whatever is comfortable for you. Anyways, remember that you wouldn't use a ne form when you don't have the object that you're talking about in front of your eyes. That is one thing to remember, and you wouldn't use a ne form, as I told, in written Korean. But if you're using in a written Korean format, that's usually when you have a conversation written there in double inverted commas or something like that. In that kind of a situation, when you're indicating a conversation, in that case, it's okay to use the ne part. So that's it for today's lesson. I hope it's clear. If it's not, put your doubts in the comments below. And also, we have seen very few adjectives in today's class, while we saw a whole table of adjectives in our last class. So try to make sentences using those adjectives too, and see what are the conjugation rules that came to your mind seeing each of the adjectives. And also you could apply the adjectives, like the conjugation rules, as I said last week. Deducing conjugation rules might be a fun thing to do. It might be kind of something like a game to play if you enjoy the linguistics part of it. So, yeah, that's it for today's lesson. Thank you for being with me.